And she said, "How are you, Harry?" I said, "How are you, Sue?" Through the too many miles and the too little smiles, I still remember you. So, without going and checking the Google box, it was probably around 1971 or so. I was watching the Johnny Carson show. Um, I was always a late night person. Anyway, his musical guest that night was a guy I'd never heard of, and he sang a song. And I can't testify, but I think it probably was Taxi. And I sat there and I heard him, and I loved the song. And I thought, I got to hear more of this guy. And now, something I remember is I was watching Johnny Carson again the following night, and Johnny says, "You know, we had a guy on here last night, and we got such a huge response that we asked if he could come back again tonight." And there was Harry Chapin coming back, and he sang another song. And so, of course, I got his album and listened to it, and I became a lifelong Harry Chapin fan. And by the way, speaking of albums, now here's something you kiddies won't know. Back in them olden days, and I mean, I hope most of you know, well, of course, vinyl, you know, that's like the hipster thing now. But that was our main music was vinyl records, and they were called LPs for long playing, and they run at 33 and a third RPMs. But what you young folk won't know is there was actually a couple other, the ones that came before the 33 and a thirds were called 78s, and I don't know if I've ever seen one in my life. I know they were around, but they ran at 78 RPMs, and they were like a little like, bigger and thicker, but they didn't give as good a sound. They were replaced by the 33s, but also at the same time they had little ones. They were 45s, and they only had one song on each side. Because like the vinyls, you know, you had two sides to them. But anyway, that's why you might still hear people talk about the A side and the B side. You know, now I never bought 45s. If I liked the song, I bought the album, and then I'd listen to it and find other songs that I liked. But a lot of times someone would get a song, they'd hear a song, and it's like, oh, I'm going to get that, and they'd buy the 45. Then you check out the B side. The A side would be the main song. That's the song that they were playing on the radio for everybody. And a lot of times you'd flip it over and you'd find out the B side was something even better. But anyway, let's get back to Harry. So I became a Harry Chapin fan, got his albums, would watch for him, and let me just throw one other thing in here, by the way, a little housekeeping thing. You know, I talked about before, and I think I am going to make this music thing sort of a regular deal. I actually, this is still Friday night, and I'll be putting this for Monday, just because this has been on my mind. You know, I've been trying to do things just like a day ahead, but just on my mind, I thought, what would I start with if I do this? And even though, you know, I've obviously showed a couple, but if I'm going to make this a regular thing, so I thought I'd go. I thought, what's one of my favorites, and also has a lot of meaning to it and stuff. So I am going to try to make this like a weekly thing. And if you guys don't give me recommendations, I'll just go through some of my old favorites and that. And for those of you who already know the songs, maybe it'll be a pleasant memory for you. And for others, maybe I'll introduce you to something new that you'll like too. And also, if you already know the song, maybe you'll have seen something different in it than what I will talk about. Because that's what's always interesting too. That's like pretty much any kind of art. You know, a lot of times you look at a painting and one person might see, you know, death, and another person sees rebirth, you know, that kind of thing. And there's definitely songs like that. And I won't start talking about them now. Let's stick with Harry Chapin. Anyway, so when I was living out in Pittsburgh, I think it was after college that when I was out there, that Harry Chapin came to town. He was at Heinz Hall, and I went to see him. Don't remember who with, but and now, of course, you know, I mentioned Taxi. That's the first song a lot of people think of with him. And another song that I know a lot of people, it's very meaning for them, is called Cats in the Cradle. I have a cousin who said that that song really changed his life, basically, because it pointed out to him how he was living and how he wanted to live. But anyway, the night I saw him in concert, Harry was just introducing a new song. And the song, he said how it came about. His secretary came in the one day and said, "Look at this note that my son brought home from school." And he looks at it, and the teacher had said something along the lines of, "Little Johnny marches to the beat of a different drummer. But don't worry, by the end of the year, we'll have him marching in line with everybody else." And so that's what this song is about. And the reason it's always touched me is because it's pretty much the way I felt through most of my educational career. And I'll tell you, let me tell you, after I play this for you, I think this song should be required listening to everybody who's going to college to want to become a teacher. But anyway, I always felt like they were trying to make me into something different than I was. And in fact, let's put a big shout out to Mrs. Knar, who I'm sure the old bat must be dead by now. But she was my 6th grade teacher, and we did not get along at all because I just didn't like what she had to say, and she didn't like my replies, I think. I remember she ended up on, I don't know where I began when I was sitting, but she took my desk clear to the back of the class to sort of segregate me. She thought it was punishment. Remember, my desk was like probably 6 feet behind the last row. And I remember I sat there and I used to hang little signs off my desk and stuff. I just enjoyed it. But she also, this was back in the days when they could paddle kids. At least around here they could. Probably in other parts of the country they had decided that was barbarism by then. And I don't even know what I would do, but I would get paddled. And it seems like and what she would do, she wouldn't paddle you in front of the class. I guess she was, you know, too sophisticated for that. But they had what was known as cloakrooms. They were closets, like big walk-in closets where you hang your coats up. And she'd take you in there, and it's like, I think it was sort of like the first offense, she would swat you once. And the next offense, she'd swat you a couple times. And I just remember coming out of there the one time, and I don't know who it was, one of the other kids, you know, she's walking up to the front, one of the other kids that sat towards the back, he looked at me and he went, 7, 7. They'd sat out there counting the smacks. But anyway, so yeah, and this is already getting long, we haven't heard the song yet. Let me tell you one other thing about Mrs. Knar. One thing I specifically remember about her in one of her classes, the one time, she told us how to recognize Negroes who were trying to pass as white. Honest to God, folks. I just always remember she said, you know, some of them are very light-skinned and they look just like us, but you can tell. She said, if you look at their hands, you know this down here, that little white part on your fingernails? Well, theirs is really white. Now, I've often thought back on that, and I thought, like me, I was always skeptical of authority, you know. Yeah, you know, my parents were always, you respect your elders, and I was always kind of like, but they're a drunk, or why should I respect this guy? He's an idiot. But anyway, but I just wonder how many other kids had her in class and kind of accepted the indoctrination, and they grew up, and whenever they'd meet somebody, they'd stare at their hands and not remember why. It would be a habit to look at their hands. But anyway, that just tells you something about what she was like. But anyway, like I said, this is a song that Harry wrote because of his secretary bringing home that note, and the song that I thought a lot of it really suited me. So let's start. It's called Flowers Are Red. And of course, I'm going to have to make a couple breaks and, you know, insert my commitude in here, but let's go. But you notice it starts off nice and bouncy.
The little boy went first day of school. He got some crayons and he started to draw. He put colors all over the paper.
I'll remember to put lyrics down there for you.
He saw. And the teacher said, "What you doing, young man?" "I'm painting flowers," he said. She said, "It's not the time for art, young man. And anyway, flowers are green and red. There's a time for everything, young man, and the way it should be done. You've got to show concern for everyone else, for you're not the only one." And she said, "Flowers are red, young man, and green leaves are green. There's no need to see flowers any other way than the way they always have been seen." But the little boy said, "There are so many colors in the rainbow, so many colors in the morning sun, so many colors in a flower, and I see every one."
So there you go. I'll throw a big word out there for you folks. Metaphor. It's not necessarily about art, but you know, this is the part that I felt related to me and probably to a lot of other folks, where you feel like you want to do the painting your way, and there you're like, nope. The flowers are red, the leaves are green, and you'll do it this way. So let's get back to it, shall we? And of course the boy says, no. I like all the colors, and I'm going to put them my way.
The teacher said, you're sassy, there's ways that things should be, and you'll paint flowers the way they are, so repeat after me. And she said, flowers are red, young man, and green leaves are green. There's no need to see flowers any other way than the way they always have been seen. But the little boy said, there are so many colors in the rainbow, so many colors in the morning sun, so many colors in a flower, and I see everyone.
See, the kid has spirit. Not gonna beat me down, he says. And of course he's sassy because he wants to stand up for himself.
The teacher put him in the corner. She said, it's for your own good, and you won't come out till you get it right, and are responding like you should. Well, finally he got lonely, frightened thoughts filled his head, and he went up to the teacher, and this is what he said. And he said, flowers are red, and green leaves are green. There's no need to see flowers any other way than the way they always have been seen.
Now, do you see why I brought up Mrs. Kennard and dragged me to the back of the class to be by myself? Isn't that what this teacher did? Decided to take the kid off and put him by himself to break his spirit. And don't you like the way any good songwriter uses the music? You know, he's talking about the boy, and it's like da 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 da. And then when the boy comes out of the corner, it's doom boom. But let us see what happens next. Notice even the jaunty part is like slowed down.
Time went by like it always does, and they moved to another town. And the little boy went to another school, and this is what he found. The teacher there was smiling. She said painting should be fun, and there were so many colors in a flower, so let's use every one. But that little boy painted flowers in each rose of green and red, and when the teacher asked him why, this is what he said. And he said, flowers are red, and green leaves are green. There's no need to see flowers any other way than the way they always have been seen.
You know, I was just thinking about, Scent of a Woman, the Al Pacino movie. Remember when he has that big speech when they put the kid on trial there? And there's that part where he says, I might be blind, but there was a time I could see, and I've seen things. And he said about, I've seen boys like these torn apart in war and stuff. And he says, but there's nothing worse than, I forget the exact words, but it's something like, destroying a soul. And that's what I feel like this song is. That teacher just put that kid over there until she broke his soul. And like I said, A lot of times I felt like that's what some people, some educators, tried to do to me. And hey, maybe you think I'm full of it, but that's just the way I felt. Um, so yeah, that's Flowers by Red. Flowers Are Red by Harry Chapin. Um, It'll be very easy to find on YouTube if you want to re-listen to it. Like I said, I'll look up the lyrics and either copy them in the description, or if they're too long, like happened with that other song, I'll put a link so you can bring up the page, and if you're on computer, you can bring up the page and have that up while you're listening to the song and see the words. Anyway, so yeah, I'm going to try to do this once a week. I think I'll make myself a little list of songs, and once again, feel free to recommend other songs to me. That's me for this day. Peace out.